The late afternoon sun slanted through the half-open blinds of our living room, painting long golden stripes across the hardwood floor and the cream-colored sofa where Amanda sat scrolling her phone. She was already dressed for the evening in a fitted black blouse and tailored pants that made her look sharp, professional, and somehow distant. The faint scent of her new perfume, something citrusy with an undertone of musk I didn't recognize, drifted toward me as I stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug warm in my hands. I always believed loyalty was the one thing we could count on, until the night she left for that surprise party and Kate's phone call turned everything I thought I knew into dust. Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be telling this story. My name is Ethan. I'm 35, a senior project manager at a logistics company downtown. My days are filled with spreadsheets, client calls, and the steady rhythm of deadlines that keep everything running on time. Amanda and I had been married 7 years, together almost 9. No kids yet. We kept saying we wanted to be more settled first, maybe buy that little house with the backyard we used to talk about on Sunday mornings. I was the steady one, the guy who remembered to schedule the oil changes and made sure the bills were paid on the first. I trusted our life together completely. Maybe too completely. Amanda was a marketing executive at a big firm across town, charismatic and driven, the kind of person who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 3 new contacts and a lunch invitation. At home she was warmer, more relaxed, or at least she used to be. Lately there had been these small moments that didn't quite fit, longer hours at the office, a new habit of keeping her phone face down, the way she sometimes smiled at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. I told myself it was just the pressure of her latest campaign, that every marriage has quiet seasons. I believed it because believing it felt safer than asking too many questions. That Friday had started like so many others. I woke to the smell of fresh coffee she had already brewed. We ate breakfast at the small round table by the window, avocado toast for her, eggs for me, talking about my upcoming deadline and her team's big product launch. She laughed at my joke about the new intern who kept calling the conference room the war room, but her laugh felt a beat too quick, her eyes drifting to her phone on the counter. When I reached over and squeezed her hand, she squeezed back, but her fingers slipped away a little too soon. By late afternoon, she was in front of the mirror in the hallway, touching up her lipstick. "It's a surprise party for Sarah's promotion," she said, adjusting the collar of her blouse. "Daniel from the team organized it last minute. Should be fun, drinks, maybe some dancing. I'll probably be home by midnight." Daniel. The name landed lightly, but something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten for half a second. I'd met him once at her company holiday party, mid-30s, confident smile, the kind of guy who always seemed to know the right thing to say. I pushed the thought away. "Daniel from marketing?" I asked, keeping my voice casual as I leaned against the wall. She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes in the mirror. "Yeah, he's been helping with the campaign. It's mostly the team, but a few partners too." She picked up her clutch, checked her phone one last time, then leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft, quick, already moving toward the door. "Don't wait up if it runs late, okay?" The door clicked shut behind her. The apartment suddenly felt larger, quieter. I stood there for a long moment, the golden light now turning orange as the sun dipped lower. Her half-empty coffee mug still sat on the counter, lipstick print on the rim. The faint trace of her new perfume lingered in the air like a question I didn't want to ask. I tried to settle on the couch with a book, but my mind kept drifting. I remembered how we used to spend Friday nights together, ordering sushi, watching bad movies, her legs draped over mine. Lately those nights had become rarer. She'd been networking more, coming home with stories about team dinners or last-minute client meetings. I'd noticed her spending extra time on her appearance in the mornings, choosing outfits with more care, but I told myself it was for work, that she was climbing the ladder, and I should be proud. At 8:47 p.m. my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Kate, our mutual friend, who worked in the same building as Amanda. Her name on the screen surprised me. We hadn't spoken in weeks. I answered. "Hey Kate, what's up?" Her voice was low, urgent. "Ethan, I'm really sorry to call like this, but I thought you should know. Amanda told me she was going to a surprise party tonight, but I just saw the group chat from her team. There is no surprise party for Sarah. It's just a small get-together at the Rooftop Lounge, and Daniel is hosting it. He's been really close with her lately at the office. I didn't want to get involved, but I figured if it were me, I'd want to know." The room seemed to tilt. The book slipped from my fingers onto the cushion. I stared at the darkening window, the city lights beginning to sparkle outside. "Ethan? You still there?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, thanks for telling me." I hung up the phone, my heart pounding against my ribs. The apartment was completely silent now except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant traffic far below. Her perfume still hung in the air, but it no longer felt warm. It felt like a warning. I had no idea how much that single phone call was about to unravel. Ethan begins in a classic state of secure attachment laced with subtle anxious undertones. He registers micro-shifts, the unfamiliar perfume, the quick kiss, the averted eyes when Daniel's name is mentioned, yet immediately reframes them as normal work stress. This is textbook cognitive dissonance management. The brain protects the relationship by discounting early warning signals. Amanda's charismatic yet validation-seeking personality appears in her polished story, and the calculated lightness of her exit. The fabricated, surprise party detail serves as her first compartmentalization layer, allowing her to step into the affair space without immediate guilt. Kate's call functions as the external disruptor that pierces Ethan's denial bubble, forcing the first crack in his illusion of stability. Sensory details, golden light turning orange, lingering perfume, lipstick print, externalize the internal fracture. The home itself begins to feel slightly unreliable. The audience is immersed in Ethan's cognitive dissonance before any concrete proof appears, mirroring how betrayal often whispers long before it screams. At this stage, the marriage still feels salvageable to Ethan, but the seeds of doubt are planted and already growing. I didn't sleep much that night. Amanda came home just after 1 a.m., the sound of her keys in the lock pulling me from a half-doze on the couch. She slipped off her heels quietly, trying not to wake me, but I was already sitting up. The living room lamp cast a soft pool of light around her. Her cheeks were flushed, hair slightly tousled, and that citrus musk perfume was stronger now, mixed with something else, maybe wine or someone else's cologne. "Hey," she said softly, hanging her clutch on the hook. "Sorry it ran late. The team really needed to blow off steam after the launch." I watched her move through the room, the way she avoided looking directly at me for more than a second. "How was the surprise party?" She paused for the tiniest fraction of a second, then smiled. "Oh, it was great. Sarah was so surprised. Daniel really outdid himself with the decorations." The name slipped out naturally, but her fingers tightened on the strap of her bag. I wanted to mention Kate's call right then, but something held me back. Fear of sounding paranoid, fear of being wrong, fear of what might be true. Instead, I asked, "Did Kate make it?" Amanda's smile faltered for half a beat. "Kate? No, she had plans with her boyfriend." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering. She texted me earlier." She nodded quickly and headed toward the bedroom. "I'm exhausted. Coming to bed?" I stayed on the couch. The leather was cool against my back. I lay there listening to the shower run, replaying Kate's words, the flush on Amanda's cheeks, the way she'd said Daniel's name like it was nothing. By morning, I had convinced myself it was probably innocent, team bonding, nothing more. People flirt at work. It doesn't mean anything. But the small changes kept piling up over the next 10 days. She started keeping her phone on silent even at home. Screen brightness turned way down. When I walked into the kitchen while she was typing, she'd angle the device away or lock it instantly. One Wednesday she came home with a new bracelet, delicate gold with a small diamond chip. "Just a little treat for hitting my quarterly target," she said, but when I asked to see the receipt, she laughed it off. "I threw it away already." Night she claimed to be working late. Her location, which she'd forgotten to turn off one evening, showed her at a downtown bar I didn't recognize. When I casually asked about her day the next morning over coffee, the smell of fresh toast filling the kitchen, she gave smooth answers that never quite matched the timeline. I mentioned the odd feelings to Michael over lunch that Friday. My longtime friend, a no-nonsense lawyer, listened while we sat in the noisy cafe, plates of pasta between us. "Little things can mean nothing, or everything," he said, wiping sauce from his chin. "You trust her, right?" I nodded, but the nod felt heavy. Then came the second surprise team event, the following Thursday. Same rush preparation, same new perfume, same quick kiss at the door. This time when she left, I waited 15 minutes, then drove to the address she'd casually mentioned. The Rooftop Lounge was dimly lit, music pulsing. Through the glass I saw her, laughing, standing close to Daniel, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back as they leaned over a shared drink menu. My stomach dropped. I didn't go inside. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, the engine off, cold air seeping through the vents, watching the silhouettes move behind the glass. When I finally drove home, the knot in my chest had turned into something sharp and permanent. She came back at 12:30 a.m. smelling of wine and that same heavy perfume. I pretended to be asleep, but every quiet movement she made in the dark felt like another small fracture in the life I thought we had built. Something was wrong. And for the first time, I couldn't make myself believe it was all in my head. Ethan's central mistake is classic conflict avoidance. He registers every red flag yet chooses silence to protect the relationship image. Amanda's mistake is underestimating how quickly small deceptions compound. Each smoothed-over lie about Daniel and the team events creates a paper trail that will later collapse. Kate's well-intentioned tip becomes an unintended catalyst that accelerates Ethan's internal fracture instead of preventing harm. The lesson beginning to form for Ethan is that unaddressed intuition doesn't disappear, it festers. For Amanda, the validation she seeks from Daniel is temporarily filling an emotional gap she refuses to discuss at home. The audience sees how the ordinary life of part one was already eroding. The little things ignored are now the same threads pulling the entire marriage apart. Denial is no longer a sustainable coping mechanism. The next 2 weeks I became hyper-aware of every detail in our home. I started noting patterns. Amanda's phone lit up with notifications between 8 and 10 p.m. almost every night. She changed her passcode because the old one was too predictable. Her calendar suddenly filled with vague client dinners on evenings she used to spend at home. One Tuesday night, while she was in the shower, I checked the joint credit card app. 3 charges at upscale bars, and 1 at a boutique hotel downtown, all on nights she claimed to be working late at the office. When I asked about the hotel charge the next morning, sunlight streaming across the breakfast table, she said smoothly, "Team off-site strategy session. Daniel booked the conference room there because the office was being painted." The explanation was perfect. Too perfect. Moral dilemmas kept me awake. Was looking at her phone a betrayal of trust, or was continuing to live in this fog worse? I wrestled with that question every night, the bedroom air thick and heavy. Red herrings kept appearing. A text from Sarah, that I glimpsed on her lock screen. "Thanks for last night, you're the best," she explained as a thank you for helping with the campaign. A men's watch she brought home as a white elephant gift for the office Secret Santa that mysteriously disappeared the next week. I developed insomnia, lying awake listening to the ticking wall clock and her steady breathing beside me. At work, I stared at project timelines without seeing them, the fluorescent lights buzzing like static in my brain. One afternoon, I drove past the hotel listed on the credit card. Sleek glass building, discreet entrance. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then one Friday evening, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went downstairs to check the mail. The screen was still unlocked. I didn't open messages. I only swiped to location history. 6 visits to that same hotel in the last 2 months, plus multiple stops at the Rooftop Lounge. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure she would hear it from the hallway. I closed the app the second I heard her footsteps. That night I barely slept. The next morning, I called Michael and told him everything over a quiet breakfast at a diner, the smell of bacon and coffee thick around us. He listened, then said quietly, "You have enough to confront her, Ethan. But get solid proof first. Screenshots, statements. Don't let her gaslight you." I had the undeniable thread. Locations, charges, Kate's warning, the night I watched them together. I hadn't pulled it yet, but I was standing right on the edge, heart pounding, knowing that once I stepped forward there would be no going back. Ethan expected 7 years of marriage to act as a shield against betrayal. Reality delivered the opposite. The longer the relationship, the deeper the blind spot he had developed. He expected Amanda's late nights to be innocent career ambition. Reality was methodical deception with a coworker. He expected any issue to be fixable with an honest conversation. Reality was a 6-month emotional and physical affair hidden behind perfectly crafted stories. The gap between his illusion of a stable marriage and the accumulating evidence grew wider with every red herring, making the coming collapse feel both shocking and strangely inevitable. This section shows how denial reframes facts until the weight of truth becomes impossible to ignore. Saturday night, I drove to the Rooftop Lounge again. Kate had texted earlier that another team event was happening. I parked across the street and waited. At 8:20 p.m. Amanda walked in wearing the black blouse from the week before. Daniel was already there, smiling as he handed her a drink. I watched them through the large windows, the way he leaned in close, the way her hand rested on his arm, the easy laughter that once belonged only to me. I couldn't stay outside any longer. I walked in, the warm air and loud music hitting me like a wall. They were at a high-top table near the bar. When Amanda saw me, her face drained of color. Daniel's confident smile faltered. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she asked, voice tight. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I had taken. Location history, credit card charges, the hotel stays. 6 months, Amanda. 6 months of lies about surprise parties and team events. I watched you with him last week. Kate told me the truth. Daniel started to speak. I cut him off. "This is between me and my wife." The music seemed to fade around us. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "It started as just talking at work. I felt invisible, Ethan. You were always so focused on your projects." Daniel listened. "You chose to lie instead of talking to me," I said, voice low but steady. The anger was there, but it was cold and clear. "You wore the clothes I bought you while you were with him. You came home to our bed after being with him." She broke down right there, shoulders shaking. Daniel quietly excused himself and left. The silence between us was deafening even with the music playing. Back home, the confrontation continued in our living room under the dim lamp light. She admitted everything. The affair had started as emotional support 6 months ago and turned physical 3 months later. She cried, apologized, begged for a chance to fix it. I listened without raising my voice, the weight of every lie settling in my chest like concrete. When the tears finally slowed, the apartment felt colder than it ever had. Trust had shattered. But for the first time that night, I saw a tiny crack of remorse in her eyes that looked real. The true point of no return was not the affair itself, but Amanda's admission that she had chosen secrecy and external validation over honesty with her husband. Once the lies were laid bare under the living room lamp, the old marriage ended. What came next would either be a completely new relationship built on strict accountability or nothing at all. The public nature of the exposure at the lounge made denial impossible and forced both of them into a moment of raw truth. The following weeks were heavy with distance and careful conversations. Amanda slept in the guest room. The apartment felt like a minefield. Every shared space carried memories that now hurt. I removed my wedding ring and placed it in the drawer, the metal cool against my palm. Michael recommended a lawyer who specialized in postnuptial agreements. We met the next week in a quiet office that smelled of fresh coffee and lemon polish. Amanda was devastated but determined. She started individual therapy immediately and cut all contact with Daniel, sending me screenshots of the final messages and blocking him everywhere. She agreed to full phone transparency, shared passwords, and location sharing. After 2 long sessions with Dr. Wallace, our new marriage counselor, we decided to try structured reconciliation instead of immediate separation. I set clear boundaries. She would move back into the master bedroom only after 3 months of consistent transparency. We signed a postnup that protected both of us financially in case of future betrayal. I kept my own therapy appointments, learning to voice my needs instead of swallowing them. The first night she slept back in our bed, the room felt different, tentative, careful, but no longer hostile. I still checked her phone some nights, not out of suspicion, but as part of our new agreement. The pain was still there, sharp on certain days, but it was no longer the only thing I felt. I made the decision in early December. We would not file for divorce. We would rebuild, slowly, with eyes wide open and systems in place. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I once imagined, but it was honest. For the first time in months, I felt a small sense of control returning. Heartbreak translated into structured action. Guest room, postnup, therapy schedule, password sharing. Amanda's remorse showed in immediate transparency and therapy attendance. Ethan's clarity showed in calm boundary setting rather than rage. The secondary loyalty twist, Kate's protective call, deepened Ethan's sense of isolation at first but later became a turning point toward accountability. Every practical step outwardly rebuilt what betrayal had dismantled inwardly. The decision to attempt reconciliation was not weakness. It was strength exercised with open eyes. 5 months later the postnup was signed, therapy was ongoing, and the daily texture of our life had changed. I wake up earlier now, make coffee in the quiet kitchen while the first light touches the countertops. Amanda and I sit together at the same table where everything once felt normal, but the conversations are deeper, more honest. She still goes to therapy twice a month. I go once. Daniel is long gone from her professional life. She changed teams at work. Weekends we hike the trails outside the city, the air crisp with pine and earth, her hand occasionally finding mine without hesitation. Some nights the old pain surfaces, a random scent, a late text, but it passes faster now. I have new routines. Gym 3 mornings a week, monthly dinners with Michael where we talk about everything except the past, and a photography class on Wednesdays that gives me space that is entirely mine. I realized something important while standing on the overlook last weekend. The city spread out below us in the golden hour light. Trust isn't something you get forever just because time has passed. It must be chosen every single day, by both people, with full transparency and courage. I ignored the small signs, and paid a devastating price. But I also learned that when betrayal happens, you can choose to rebuild stronger, with boundaries, with accountability, with eyes wide open. Amanda and I are not the same couple we were 7 years ago. We are a new version, cautious, intentional, and slowly healing. Forgiveness is a daily practice, not a one-time event. I still feel the scar, but it no longer defines me. For the first time since that Friday night, I wake up feeling like the ground beneath my feet is solid again, not because the betrayal never happened, but because we chose to face it together and build something better on the other side. I'm still here. We're still here. And that, for now, is enough. This story explores the quiet violence of unspoken emotional needs and the difficult courage required to rebuild after betrayal. Ethan's journey from blind trust to cautious clarity shows that denial protects the illusion of safety at the expense of truth. Amanda's validation-seeking behavior masked an avoidant pattern that sought external admiration rather than confronting dissatisfaction at home. Kate's tip-off and the post-nup became turning points that transformed chaos into structure. The layered deceptions around, surprise parties, and Daniel illustrate how betrayal hides behind everyday language until the weight of evidence forces honesty. Ultimately, the narrative affirms that real empowerment after infidelity does not always mean walking away. Sometimes it means staying and demanding radical accountability. Trust can be broken in a moment, but rebuilt over many deliberate days. Ethan and Amanda's tentative reconciliation is not a fairy tale. It is a mature, hard-won choice to face reality together. Situations like this happen more often than we admit, yet the real victory belongs to those who choose to learn, set boundaries, and keep walking forward anyway.